Welcome to the Shields on Hoops podcast, where we discuss all things Syracuse hoops. Today, we are coming to you a day after Syracuse's 83-63 win over the Fighting Ducks of Oregon in the middle of America in Sioux Falls. Kind of a weird vibe of a game. Ebb and flow. I don't know, never really felt like for Syracuse, they got into a little bit of rhythm, but it didn't really feel like there was a lot of rhythm to the game. There wasn't one point where both teams were playing well, so it was just kind of like a very one-sided game, especially when Syracuse kind of woke up about 10 minutes into the first half. But the Orange did a big win over a team that it was highly rated in KenPom and other analytical metrics. And now that's a game that, regardless of what happens in the future, if Oregon gets better, then that's a game that Syracuse can kind of hang their hat on. It's a win, right? It doesn't matter when it happens. It doesn't matter. And it was a 20-point win, which is not as important in some metric systems, but in some it is. So, winning by 20 on a neutral floor is a really potential boosting type of win, for sure. So regardless of how it happened or if it was pretty or ugly, like it's a positive result for sure. Orange moved up to 8-3. They have Niagara coming up on Thursday, and then they will start off a tough 6, 7, 8 game slate in the ACC. Really, since Syracuse is not, an elite team in the conference, the whole stretch of the ACC is a challenge. Syracuse had the good news is that they've had one of the 3 tough road games is already out of the way with UVA. They still got to go to Duke and Carolina. But they played the majority of the really tough part of their schedule outside of those Duke Carolina games. The rest of the games are teams that are like in the 50 to 100 range on KenPom, which are all games Syracuse is capable of winning. But they're also all games that Syracuse is capable of losing. I think there's going to be a lot of really tight contests here over the next couple of months, the next 2 months of the season. So, Syracuse, a big win. A lot of kind of new contributors. Some people kind of solidifying their role in the lineups. Some people have been kind of not playing very well lately. So this is kind of the depth that I think we were hoping to see. Like, if Chris Bell doesn't shoot well, what happens? Well, yesterday, Quadir Copeland came in and did his thing, right? If Judah is turning it over or not taking care of the ball, well, we have JJ to run point, and then Kyle Cuff comes in and makes some big plays, right? So a lot of big things, a lot of good things that I saw from the win. So, Nick, let's go ahead and jump right in with your kind of initial thoughts on the game. Give us your rundown and tell us what you think.
Yeah, so when Oregon gets healthy, Oregon is going to be a very good team in the Pac-12. They were, for the most part, up until Syracuse kind of took over and went on that run late in the first half, Oregon was right there, and they were missing 5, 6 guys. Potentially, they had 7 scholarship players. So Oregon, once they get healthy, but they will definitely. This should be a great win for Syracuse come end of the season time. But yeah, the first 5, 6 minutes of the game, Syracuse got punched, and they got punched hard. They were down 14-4 at one point, and Oregon was getting great looks from 3. Syracuse couldn't buy a basket. It kind of seemed like one of those games where Syracuse was going to get run out of the gym early. And then Adrian Autry went to the bench and made a couple subs, and the guys who came in really kind of started this whole run. Shout out to Kyle Cuff for coming in and hitting a huge 3 to get the scoring going and making some big plays there in the first half. Shout out Quadir as well for coming in and making huge plays throughout the game. But I think that bench unit really came in and really kind of got Syracuse going in the right direction. And then they ran out. Then they just ran with it from there. The second half came. Justin Taylor hit a 3 to start the second half, and I think it put him up 11 or 12. And it kind of just took off from there. Like Syracuse never really got close again. And Syracuse just made play after play. Oregon had some boneheaded turnovers where they would get rebounds and throw the ball away, or get rebounds and I think they had 3 possessions where they got a defensive rebound and then traveled right away. You don't really see that in college too much. So Syracuse, I don't know if Syracuse just kind of sped up the game in the second half, and Oregon just kind of made, like, only having 7 scholarship guys. A lot of guys had to play bigger minutes than what they're used to. So, like, I don't know if that was a fatigue thing, like a mind thing. So But very impressive win from Syracuse, especially kind of on the front of, as we talked about against Georgetown, like Chris Bell and Justin Taylor both offensively were not there. Justin Taylor had 4 points. He hit that 1-3 to start the second half and then hit a free throw. But they weren't there at all. They had 4 points between the two of them, and they were 1 of 6 shooting between the two of them. So, it was nice to see the bench definitely come in and make some noise. We had 44 bench points, which if you would have told me that before the game, I would have said you're absolutely insane. But Kyle had 8, Quadir had 15, Benny had 8, Malik had 13. And then Judah and JJ kind of got going. Judah down the stretch of the first half, JJ more in the second half. But I thought overall Syracuse played good offensively. They moved the ball. It seems like they're starting to move the ball, cut without the ball, set screens for each other. They're playing off one another. And I know I mentioned it in the Georgetown game, but when guys get assists for each other, it seems like the whole team kind of gets hyped. And you saw that again yesterday against Oregon. And one thing I wanted to point out was shout out Syracuse fans. From what it looked like on TV, it was about 50-50, but we mentioned that this game was probably about as close to the middle that you could get between Oregon and Syracuse. So shout out Syracuse fans for showing up and making some noise. And overall, I thought it was an impressive win. Obviously, Oregon shot 14.8% from 3. And they are one of the top 40 teams, or they were one of the top 40 teams in college basketball in 3-point shooting. So Syracuse dodged a bullet there, but overall, I thought they played very well.
Yeah, and I think that so on the 3-point thing, I tweeted out something this morning that in Syracuse's 3 wins over quote unquote major opponents. So we'll count Georgetown, put Oregon in there, put LSU in there. Those teams have shot 14% from 3 against Syracuse in those games that Syracuse has won. So, you ask yourself, is that Syracuse defending the 3-point line so well? Or is it teams just for some reason not shoot? Why? Why are those teams shooting so bad? Because it's not like every team shoots bad against Syracuse from 3, because you look at UVA and the games they've lost, the good teams they've played, UVA, Gonzaga, Tennessee, those teams have all shot in the 40. I think it was 46% from 3 against Syracuse. So, what is the reason behind that? I think that LSU missed a ton of open shots. I think Georgetown missed a ton of open shots, and I think Oregon missed a ton of open shots. So I don't know if there is a correlation there, or if it's just dumb luck. I don't know, but that has been very, very fortunate for Syracuse. And people say things like, okay, well, they won by 20 though, so what would it have mattered? I mean, okay, but
you had 4 or 5 more threes. That's 15 points.
You hit 3 more threes, and over the course of the game and the timing of the game, it changes the whole complexion of the game, right? You're down by 6 and you hit a 3 all of a sudden, and it's a 3-point game. It changes everything. But you miss a 3 and they come down, and we come down and hit a 3. It's a 6-point swing. So it's easy to say, well, if they would have made 6 more free throws, they would have done this. But it just, I don't know, the flow of the game, numbers are important, obviously, but the flow of the game matters too. So if you just go through a game and just keep missing and missing and missing, it just starts to wear on you. And I think that kind of happened to Oregon. They're just desperate for something to go in. And again, I thought they got good shots, especially in the first half. So I don't know. That's something to keep an eye on. Might be a trend that really kind of X factor trends that kind of determines Syracuse's success in ACC play, is whether or not A, they defend the 3-point line well, and B, whether teams just shoot well from there. So, let's take a look at the box score real quick. Syracuse did a lot of things well. Obviously, Judah Mintz had 18. He's starting to even out in the 3-point shooting, like I said he would. It's 0 for 2 from 3. Got to the line 11 times. 5 assists, 3 rebounds, 4 steals, 6 turnovers, though. The one thing that Syracuse probably was not great at this or yesterday is taking care of the ball.
A lot of Juda's turnovers were there was a couple early in the game where when they were kind of slowly pressing us and we were like throwing the ball back and forth to try to get over half court, like there was 2 or 3 of them where he kind of lobbed it a little bit too high for JJ or Quadir or something like that. So like they weren't like, yes, it's a turnover, but it wasn't a live ball turnover, and it wasn't like one that Oregon got out in transition and scored a bucket off of. But those are like the little things that you just want to keep away. Obviously, we had 19 turnovers as a team, so
6 is a lot, no matter what. And yeah, so 19 as a team. So I mean, Syracuse was earlier in the year, one of their strengths was taking care of the ball. They're now up to 177th in the country with an offensive turnover rate. So it's been a thing that's starting to trend a little bit in the wrong direction, I think, for Syracuse. So hopefully they can kind of figure that stuff out and kind of shore that up, because that's one of those things, that turnovers are not. When you turn it over, you don't get to shoot. Okay, like it's as simple as that. So fortunately for Syracuse, Oregon turned it over 19 times as well. It just, again, like, and I think Steve Lavin mentioned this, it was like there were multiple times in the game where Syracuse would turn it over and then Oregon would turn it over right back. I mean, like just like you said earlier, they would just get a steal and take like 3 steps, or get a steal and just throw it to the guys in orange. Like it was just like really weird kind of turnovers, which kind of, again, allowed Syracuse to keep that momentum and not allow any big runs, which I thought was really big. Syracuse didn't shoot a lot of threes, only took 13 threes in this one. They were 5 for 13. JJ Starling leading the way from the arc. Him and Kyle Cuff were both 2 for 3. JT was 1 for 3, as you said, and Chris Bell was kind of a non-factor in this one. He was 0 for 1. Judah Mintz was 0 for 2. And Malik Brown was 0 for 2, 0 for 1 to bring his career up to 0 for 2. So 72% from 3, or from the free throw line, 38.5% from 3, which we'll take, and 62.5% from 2, which that was just breakaway layups and dunks, slashing that whatever that zone was they were trying to run, and just getting really good shots. So I mean, pretty good job. Like efficiency-wise, like if Syracuse would stop turning the ball over, that would have been a very highly efficient offensive game, like top notch. If they kind of cut down those turnovers.
Syracuse has a chance without turning the ball over 19 times to come close to scoring 100 points against an opponent like that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're probably right. I mean, you get yourself, 4 or 5 extra possessions. Who knows what happens? I think you're definitely in the 90s. But yeah, for sure. Oregon, on the other hand, not very pretty. 52.9% from 2. Okay. 14.8% from 3, like you said. Shellstat was 2 for 10. And then, again, we talked pre-pod. These guys were top. This was the 31st best three-point shooting team in the country coming in. So the 31st best three-point shooting team in the country coming in comes in to Sioux Falls and shoots under 15% from 3. And they shot 27 of them. That's wild, right? That's wild. 68% from the foul line. 12 offensive rebounds. So they got some chances there. Didn't really capitalize too much. But yeah, 9 assists and 19 turnovers for them. Not a good look. Not a good look. Nobody really played super well for them. I thought the Evans kid looked good in spots. Shellside looked good in spots, but they just couldn't get it going, man. They just couldn't get the engine to turn over. Like it was like they would have like kind of these like 45, 90-second spurts here and there where you were like, oh, here they come back to life. Like when Rigsby got that drive in the second half, I was like, oh, here they come, right? They're gonna make a little run here. They just never did it, and Syracuse just kept getting good shots and easy shots. And I think the size, I think it's hard to see on TV sometimes. But that 3 or 4 inch difference, like it doesn't sound like a lot, and it probably doesn't look like a lot when you're watching the game on TV. Like we'll see things like, like 6 or 7 inches, you can kind of tell a big difference. But that 3 or 4 inch, it matters, man. Like I mean, Shellsad's 6 foot, like, and Judah is what, 6'4", 5.
Yeah.
So I mean, like that's I'm 5'10". I never liked being defended by 6'3" dudes. Okay. I'll take you know what I mean? Like there's a difference in being defended by a 5'10" guy and a 6'3" dude. Okay. Like you learn how to maneuver and get through it, but like, it's different. Okay. So especially at the guard spot, so I think that was evident. Like I think it just made them a little more uncomfortable, and that could have played into three point stuff. I think the shots were still good enough for them. These are D1 guys, but as far as like getting into the lane and just kind of making things a little more difficult for them and getting in passing lanes, I think that was a big difference.
Yeah, I thought one big thing in this game that I forgot to mention. We've talked about it. Syracuse, it seems like this year and a lot of their games, I mean, outside of maybe the LSU game, which they kind of took over late, they've had trouble closing out halves. Syracuse did a very good job closing out the first half and definitely closing out the second half in this game. One big play that I kind of wanted to mention is Syracuse kind of turned the ball over. I think there was like 45 seconds left, and Oregon got down and got a dunk. And like you kind of felt like, okay, maybe this is a little momentum for Oregon going into half. And then Judah comes down and throws an alley-oop to Benny Williams, and he dunks it. And it kind of seemed like, all right, well, Syracuse grabbed it right back pretty quickly. And like just like the little things like that, like going into halftime with momentum, and then like we mentioned, coming out and Justin hits that big three coming out of halftime, and then it kind of felt like, okay, Syracuse is going to run away with this game, and that's what they ended up doing.
I think that three by Taylor was a big one because I think it bumped it from 8 to 11.
Yeah, it was either 8 or 9 to 11 or 12.
Yeah, and it kind of gave some space and just just gave them some space and some buffer, I think, and that was a big shot because they hadn't made a bunch of threes up until then. So I thought that's a really underrated play. He wasn't super effective offensively, but I thought that one was something that was big.
And one thing I will say before Chris Bell, I know he only played 12 minutes yesterday. He didn't score. He only took 3 shots. It kind of seemed like early in the second half there was 2 cases where he kind of put the ball on the floor and tried to pull up for a contested mid-range. It kind of seemed like he was trying to get himself going outside of playing within the flow. But I will say that there was 2 defensive plays in that game where they ended up calling a foul. He had the one block on the one, I forgot, it was in transition, and he was coming down and blocked it off the backboard. And then he had another block, I think, a couple minutes after that. And they ended up calling a foul on both. But those were 2 very good defensive plays by Chris Bell. They were iffy calls, but it's things that you wouldn't have seen last year, that even when a game where he only plays 12 minutes and doesn't score effectively, he was still playing defense and things like that, which is a positive sign moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, I thought, again, like he has gotten much better this year, right? Defensively, even rebounding. Those numbers aren't great, but you can just tell that he still gets bodied at times. He still gets caught in bad situations, but you can tell in general he's in better positioning on both those things. So, but like again, with Chris Bell, it just comes down to he's got to make threes, and there's going to be games this year. There's going to be ACC games this year where he goes 4 for 7, and we're going to freaking need him out there on the floor. But like, if other guys are playing well and he's not shooting well, like, earlier in the year, Quadier was not playing well, so like he was like, we have to leave Chris out there anyway because like we can't trust Quadier. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But now Copeland's earning some trust, and obviously he was MVP probably this one. 15 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists, only 2 turnovers. No 3-pointers taken. Okay. So like he's 32 minutes. I mean, second most minutes on the team.
He was very, very, very efficient as well.
He was very, very good. He was very good yesterday. And he's kind of doing what Justin was doing earlier in the year, where it's like, well, I have to play him. How can I not play this guy? Right. Like, and same thing that Chris has done this year. Like, well, how do I not play him? Like, you know what I mean? So I think he's kind of, and same with Malik, right? There's a couple of guys who are just kind of like, well, they're not giving me any option. And again, if it's a game where you're in control and you're up by 10 or 12 most of the game, you don't need Chris Bell to be hitting threes. You know what I mean? Like, we don't need him to like spark or bring us back or get things going. I mean, Chris Bell won the Colgate game by himself pretty much. You know what I mean? So like, and I think it's like the positive and also the frustrating thing about this team. Like, the positive is that guys can perform at different times and play well and pull us through. The frustrating thing is you just never know who's going to do what. right? Like Quadir might come out next game and play 10 minutes and have 4 turnovers and not score. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
you only really know what you're getting from Judah and JJ most nights.
yeah, everybody else
Yeah.
is like just in the moment. It's all in the moment, which is kind of frustrating. And I guess good teams like winning NCAA tournament teams, like again, perform consistently and know what they are. But like that is frustrating for me.
Yeah, and kind of like you mentioned, like yesterday, it was more of we're up 12, we're up 13, we're up 14. Let's just play defense and kind of move the ball around. And that's where Quadir would fit more than Chris Bell would. And that's nothing against Chris Bell, but you don't need 3-pointers. You don't need those things. So let's put Quadir kind of in the middle of this matchup zone and let him kind of go to work. And that's just what you needed. So,
and if Chris and Justin want to play more, they need to contribute in other ways. You know what I mean? Like Justin has found rebounding as a way to play more and difficult plays. Like Bell has to find ways. If he wants to play, he's got to find ways to contribute when he's not making shots.
And there's like a couple of times, like I mentioned, that he had those 2 drives where he kind of pulled up for a contested mid-range shot early in the second half. Like both of those drives, truthfully, if you go back and watch, he has a chance to get to the rim. And like, I don't know if he just doesn't trust himself going downhill and getting to the rim where he trusts his jump shot more. But like those are little things that if you work on and you can get to the rim, now you may draw the extra defender, and then if you miss a layup, you have a guy down there to clean up the offensive glass, and it's just like the little things like that. But obviously, I'm not harping on Chris Bell. I think Chris Bell has been fantastic for most of the season. He's been a key contributor for we're 8-3. I mean, probably 7 or 8 games this year. Like you said, he brought Syracuse back against Colgate. If it wasn't for his 3-point shooting, we don't have a chance in that game. But like you said, you got to find more ways to stay on the floor and not just be your 3-point shooting.
Yeah, and that's his maturing as a player, right? That's something he's going to have to work on this summer. And like you said, he took big jumps this year. He'll take big jumps next year too, and so will the rest of those guys. So, yeah, I mean, so JJ was good. He was solid. I mean, 4 for 6 from 2, 2 for 3 from 3, 2 assists, 2 turnovers, 16 points. He was good. He didn't dominate or do anything super like flashy, but he was pretty productive.
He hit that 3 at the end and kind of looked at the bench, which I thought was pretty fun. But
yeah. And Naheem was fine.
I thought Naheem played about as well as he could have.
He had 8 rebounds.
He rebounded, he contested, he altered shots at the rim.
A lot of those rebounds were his own shots on offensive end, but like,
he did. I will say one thing: he did get unlucky on some layups that kind of rolled in and out.
I thought he had some good moves. I thought he looked good. I think he was serviceable yesterday, right? He was serviceable for sure.
And one question while we're talking players right now, one question that I got from fan perspective was why did we see no Hema after how he played against Georgetown? And you guys have to realize that Oregon had 7 scholarship players and really only 1 big, and that big kind of falled out. So it was a game where Malik playing at the 5 doesn't hurt them as opposed to playing Hema more. So like you're going to see this a lot with matchups. It's going to be a matchup thing. Obviously, like Hema, he came in, he played those 9 minutes. He was great. He was fantastic. He was a key contributor in Syracuse's win against Georgetown. But it's more of a spot and pick kind of play for Hema where if McLeod like gets in foul trouble, or I know there's been a couple instances this year where he's kind of left games due to like quote unquote injury status for whatever reason we'll say. And Malik can't hold down the 5. That's where you may see Hema here and there, but they didn't need Hema yesterday. And with a guy who's obviously you've heard has had chronic back pains and issues all year, you're not going to throw him out there in a game that you don't really need him. You'd rather save him for whatever he can give you when you need him.
Yeah, I think he's going to be a very needs-based guy. Like he's not going to play just to play. He's going to play when we need him to play.
He's like you're kind of big that like when we go to North Carolina and we play like an Armando Bacot or a Jalen Washington as a backup 5, where you may see Hema out there because Hema can give you 5 fouls and he can also play defense and rebound. So like those are the type of games where you'll see him more than games like this.
Yeah, I agree. Malik was good. 13 points, 6 for 7, 3 rebounds. I've never seen a 4-5 man get so many like just poked away steals on the perimeter. It's like uncanny. Like
And
it's
you
like
can't.
it's wild.
It's kind of like you say when you talk Judah, right? And like when teams scout Judah, you know he's going to try to get you to jump and fall, right? Like you have to, at this point, you have to be scouting Malik and
Ball
how he
security.
pokes the ball away. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
you have to.
Right? Like rip high and hard. Like, yeah. So I thought he was good. Did Benny score on any points that weren't
Benny
dunks?
had a dunk in transition. Benny
Yeah.
had 2 alley-oops, and then Benny
Yeah.
had a dunk that he went like the reverse under the rim one when he kind of went it
Everything
backwards.
so everything was right there.
But listen, I will say, I know we've harped on Benny a lot this year, respectively, because he's earned that harping. But
Yeah.
I thought Benny was phenomenal when he came in. He kind of got the team going. He didn't really he kind of seemed more in the flow of the offense than he has been recently.
Yeah, because he was touching the ball.
But that's what Benny's on the floor for, right? Is you get like that first the Judah steal when he throws it ahead and Benny dunks it, and like you kind of felt like this team was getting more juice at that point, and then like he had the 2 alley oops, the one that I forgot who threw it. They were in transition and they threw it up, and like was it Judah?
I think so.
And like Benny like caught it, but it slipped out of his hand and rolled in the rim. He had the alley oop at the end of right before halftime, and then he had the reverse dunk that he kind of. Which was actually pretty impressive because the dude was like coming down to block it, and he kind of threw it right down before that. But
he had a bunch of highlights. He took no other shots. There's no only shots.
I'm fine with that at this point. If you haven't played, you're not in rhythm. Like, don't force things that aren't there.
Be that guy. Yeah, be that guy. That's fine.
Be a spark plug, right?
That guy. Yeah. Kyle Cuff was huge in his minutes, especially in the first half. Kyle Cuff might have saved our ass, honestly. Because I mean, I know I was like
had nothing going.
I hate the Judah, Cuff, Malik, Copeland, Benny lineup. I hate it. Right now, is it the best defensive lineup? Yeah, it probably is. I mean, they probably are the best defensive lineup. In the end, they got some breakaways and they kind of shifted momentum that way. But like if it's a half court game, that lineup will lose. But Kyle Cuff comes on here like a gunslinger and hits 2 threes. And so, like, it just kind of that one run right there that brought it back.
I think he had a dunk. Didn't he have a dunk in between there too?
He did. Yeah. So, like, I mean, again, I freaking hate that lineup. I don't think it's sustainable. I think they were very fortunate that it went well for them. But that is the best lineup if you're trying to get some stops and maybe slow some momentum. I do like that. But that lineup just terrifies me in the half court because there's just not a lot of shooting. I mean, Cuff is decent.
I'm surprised you didn't see the 3 guard lineup at all yesterday, especially with the fact that Oregon played a lot of guards.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I think maybe Syracuse wanted to. I was surprised Oregon started both the bigs. I don't know. I just think they were. I think they were just scraping for something. Like they were not in a good place.
We said on our preview pod that this was a game with all the injuries that Syracuse had to win.
Yeah, I hate the word must win, but like
it's one of those games where if you have to, like, you know how randomly during conference play, like some teams will play like out of conference games, like halfway in between conference play. Yeah. Like it's one of those games where you don't want to play Oregon at the end of January as opposed to right now.
No, for sure. Definitely not. Yeah, 100%. But yeah, I mean, I just think, it bumped Syracuse up in the net because again, like regardless of who's on the floor and kind of based on ratings and where they started the season, like, that was that at the time. Now they're like, I think like 50th. I think it bumped them like 50, but that was a top 35 KenPom win at the time. And that's why, when you score well against a KenPom team, you defend well against a good offensive team, you're going to get bumped up. Right. So, like we talked a little bit earlier, and I kind of mentioned before, like big win, needed to have it. It's one of those games where maybe winning it is not as important as not losing it, just because of the opportunity it presented, right? So, yeah, so again, Syracuse will close out with Niagara, and they got Pitt twice, BC, Duke, Carolina, Miami, and we're going to have a really, really good idea of where they stand in those next 6 games after Niagara. Hopefully, Niagara's goes as according to plan. They're one of the, I think, 30 worst teams in the country or 40 worst teams in the country right now. I think like 320 something in Ken Palm. So hopefully that's a game where Syracuse does fine. Again, what it reminds me of is the Monmouth game last year, where that was a travesty to start, right? And they kind of pulled away. So easy,
Or the Bryant game.
Yeah, well,
Which
yeah.
they lost.
We saw what Syracuse did when we lost 4 players, right? I think that's a huge stretch. That's gonna be a fun stretch and interesting. Like I said, I think there's gonna be a lot of close games, and hopefully this team, with their neutral court experiences and traveling and heading to Maui and playing these top teams, hopefully they're ready to go. Now we haven't been in any like barn burners, right? There haven't been any like really. I mean, I guess if you want to count Colgate, I guess. But there haven't been any like just nail biting back and forth type tough, like you know what I mean? Like we haven't had one of those yet. So that'll be interesting.
We've had like some first halves where it's kind of been like that, but they've pulled away early in the second half to where it hasn't really affected them too much.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just kind of like we'll see. I think those are unavoidable. I think those are coming quick here in the next couple of weeks. We'll talk about that a little bit later and after Niagara. So
just a couple things I want to point out before we I know we both kind of put on social media thoughts on the game, so we'll go over some of those thoughts from the fans and everything like that. Just a couple things I want to point out. Syracuse women's basketball plays twice this week. They are 8-1 on the season. They could be 10-1 by the time Thursday afternoon hits. They're playing very good. So if you have a chance to go see Syracuse women's basketball, please get out and go check them out. I know Thursday. Sorry, guys. I don't make the women's schedule. Thursday. So Syracuse has 3 games Thursday: women's basketball, men's basketball, and our football bowl game are all Thursday. Syracuse women got the odd end of the stick, and they tip off at 10:30 a.m. on Thursday. So I know. Listen, I said I don't make the schedule. 10:30 a.m. on Thursday, Syracuse women's basketball, because they're on finals week, so they don't have class.
What?
Yeah, 10:30 a.m. And then the men play at 5 against Niagara, and then obviously our football team plays at 7:30 or 8? I don't know what time it is. In their bowl game. But if you get a chance to go out and see the women, please get out and go check them out. Some things I wanted to run by. Obviously, we said this weekend was a big weekend in college basketball. A lot of big games. UConn ended up beating Gonzaga by 13 on Friday night. That was probably the big game of the week. And then
Purdue.
And then over the weekend, Kentucky and North Carolina had. I actually watched that game. It was a great game. Unfortunate for North Carolina, they were down 3, and they were kind of running a play for Cormac Ryan, and he turned around and wasn't looking for the ball, and it hit him off the back. And they kind of turned it over after that. But Texas ended up beating LSU. Miami won by 7 over LaSalle. Kansas beat Indiana by 4. James Madison won. They are probably going to move up in the rankings as well. Houston beat A&M. Memphis beat Clemson. Clemson, I think that's their first loss of the season.
By 2.
That was a great game. Purdue said F the haters, and they went in and beat Arizona, and their backcourt of Smith and Lawyer played absolutely incredible. Virginia beat Northeastern by 2. That was a 56-54 game. Northeastern is now 4-7 on the year, and Reese Beekman hit the game winner with 5.1 seconds remaining. So that was a tough one against a low competition right there. BYU ended up winning. Tennessee won by 9 over NC State. And in the big upset of the weekend, Michigan State dominated number 6 Baylor and ended up winning that game by 24. And Michigan State's definitely had a rough start to their season. And Illinois throttled Colgate, so that doesn't help Syracuse at all. That would have been a nice win for Colgate if they could have pulled that off. And Colorado State won by 32 on Sunday.
UVA's got Memphis coming up too, so that'll be interesting to see how they respond to that. I'm looking at the UVA box score right now. UVA against Syracuse, crazy. Against Northeastern, 2 for 14 from 3. McNeely was 2 for
Tuesday.
6.
There's actually some good games. You got, like you said, you got Virginia, Memphis, and then you got Marquette and Providence. So those are 2 pretty good games on Tuesday. Wednesday, you got a couple good games. You got Arizona, Alabama. You got Creighton, Villanova. You have Duke and Baylor. You have UConn and Seton Hall, who's not horrible this year. And you got North Carolina and Oklahoma. So there's some good games Wednesday. Seton Hall, I think they still have Kaderi Richmond. Wish he would have never left Syracuse, but that's another story.
I'm okay.
Louisville, did Louisville end up? I think Louisville ended up winning.
They smacked
Pepperdine. They play Kentucky on Thursday, so
that should be fun.
And then, like we mentioned, Syracuse plays Thursday. So we'll just go over some fan interaction that we've had. One of the questions I had that I think is kind of an odd question right now, but one of the fans wanted to know, do you see a change in the starting lineup coming with ACC play on the verge and possibly seeing Benny slide back into the starting 5?
Hell no.
That was one question I got.
I think Benny,
so their thinking of it was you slide him in for Justin Taylor, right? And then you have Justin be like that 6th man off the bench.
I mean, okay. I feel like you would start Malik over instead of Benny. But they've never.
If it were me, that's how I would go.
The problem is they've never played Malik and Naheem together. That's the problem.
Yeah.
So that's obviously not in their heads at all. I don't know. I think Justin does enough, and he's enough of a threat spacing wise. I don't know. I don't think Red trusts Benny. I don't trust Benny. Like Benny hasn't earned it, dude. He caught a bunch of dunks. Okay, like he didn't do anything. He caught a bunch of dunks and he didn't shoot any stupid shots. So yes, on not taking stupid shots, good, right? Like, but he caught a bunch of dunks. Right? He got lucky and got a breakaway. He ran the court and got some lobs. Those are all good things. But like he's not doing anything. Like,
and like I get it, right? Is like
he might break a rule tonight. He might break a rule tonight, and then he might just get another 1-game suspension. So like,
and the big thing is like I know a lot of people are looking at their last 2 games and how Justin and Chris have struggled, but like you don't. It hasn't hurt the team in any way, shape, or form, and B, I just feel like you have like that starting 5 is figuring it out, and like you're gonna need these guys. Like I wouldn't make a move unless it comes down to the point where like you're going in against a team and like you get throttled, like where Benny, you put him in for his size. You know what I mean? Like that would be the only reason why I would think you would maybe make a move. But like even at that, I think Justin's played good enough at the 4.
He's rebounding just fine. Really, the real question I think would be is like I'd start Quadir over one of them over Benny. Because Quadir rebounds just as well as Benny does. Not quite as athletic, maybe in as long, but like plays 100 times harder. Like, I mean, I've seen Quadir go just snag rebounds. Benny's like, oh, there's the ball. Let me go get it. Yeah. Like, oh, it's bouncing to me. Let me go grab it now.
So to answer your question, no, I don't think they make a change in their starting 5. I don't think you can. You'd be putting a guy to the bench who's worked harder than a guy who doesn't deserve to start at this point.
Just do the 3-minute sub. Like it's going to be okay. Like let's just see how Naeem does.
And maybe he plays better. Like maybe that unit off the bench of Kyle, Quadir, Benny, and Malik play better together. Maybe that's why they keep it. I mean, who knows at this point? But
here's a question for you then: if you started Quadir, are you starting him in Justin or Chris's spot?
Justin, and I'm moving Chris up to the 4.
That's interesting because Justin's played 4 all year.
Yeah, I know. I don't know if you can start Justin. Like right now, if you ask me, like you would need it. So like right now, how I look at it is I look at it as right now, Chris Bell is more of a threat as a 3-point shooter than Justin is, right? And if you take Chris off the floor, now you don't have yes, Justin is a threat, but like there was times in the game yesterday where Oregon kind of sagged off Justin.
Mhm.
Don't ask me why, because
Prove it. Kind of prove it first.
But like I would leave Chris in there because Chris is more of a reliable 3-point shooter right now than Justin is.
I agree too. I think Chris can score more than I think having as far as and look, the offense is not. I know everybody's all hyped. The offense is not good, dude. Like
No.
it's not good.
Yes, it's different than it has been. Like guys are moving now, but they're not. It's not any better.
It's like 12th out of 15 in the ACC. It's not good. Okay, it's here's how bad the offense is. Okay, like the amount of turnovers that Syracuse is forcing, which is like top 50 in the country, right? So the amount of extra possessions and the extra like opportunities that the offense gets, and the amount of runouts and fast break points they get, right? Those count for your offense, right? So even when you account for all of that, that's how bad the rest of it is, because it averages out to be still so poor. Like the half court offense is not good. Like it's not. Like especially it's like if Judah doesn't get free throws, it's not good. It's been good in spots, but like again, point being, that's why you have, whether you like it or not, whether you think he doesn't play hard, whether you think whatever you want to think, he has to be on the floor because he is a spacing threat at least. Like you have to, you have to go out there.
I don't have any complaints about the way Chris has played this year.
I don't either. I mean, I think when he misses shots, a lot of the fan base like wants to harp on everything else.
Because they've seen, like you've seen in spurts this year what he can do as a 3-point shooter, and then there's games like yesterday where he doesn't. You have to realize he took 3 shots, 2 mid range and 1 3. That's it.
Yeah, which is fine. But like, yeah, good. The way the game was flowing and the way other guys were playing well, that's what being on a team is. Like that's the whole point. Like who is helping us the most? So I think like.
And like I said, they're even only playing 12 minutes and not having a point, he still made 2 great defensive plays in the second half of that game, and like you just gotta like, I think he realized that a lot of these guys I feel like are buying in now to the fact that it's not just me, it's more of it's a team game and whatever we need to win is what we have to do, and like.
Who cares
having Quadir on the floor the last 2 games has been beneficial for Syracuse. And like you said, maybe we go out there Thursday night and Quadir plays 9 minutes and has 4 turnovers. You don't know. But like you being a coach and like having like obviously I coach, obviously you've coached, and like you know that like your lineups are based on the flow of the game and how guys are playing in the game and things like that. So you're closing. To me, I care more about who closes in a close game than I care about who starts. Truthfully, I don't care what 5 start. I care about if you're 5 minutes left in the second half and it's a tie game, who are your 5 that you close a game with? That's to me what I care about more. Because like there was also another question I had that should they move Naheem to the bench and start Malik at the 5? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But like,
I understand the temptation, but like,
I care more about who closes the game than I would who starts the game at the end of the day.
Yeah, and again, I mean, look at the box score, right? Like, I think in the end, okay, so Naheem starts, whoop-de-doo, 14 minutes, Malik 26 minutes. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter. Like, okay, so Chris Bell started 12 minutes, Quadir 32. You know, so it's like, and there have been games when Chris has played 35. You know what I mean? So it's like the only 2 guys who are going to play 32, 35 minutes every night are Judah and JJ. No matter what, they're too good. They're too important. They have to be on the floor at all times. Like they're going to always be on the floor. Right?
And the only way they don't hit that number is if they're in foul trouble.
Yes.
Actually, just in foul trouble. I think that's it.
That's the only reason. That's the only reason. Like there is no other reason, because again, you don't have dynamic guards. Because again, we have a lot of one-dimensional players on the roster, right? Which is why Copeland's so valuable, because he's that kind of Scottie Pippen type dude, right? Like he can kind of do a little bit of everything. And you know, like Judah and JJ have to be out there because like you can play Cuff in spurts, but he's not that guy. Like he's not that dude. Like, you know, he
definitely helped Syracuse kind of get going yesterday, but like
Yeah,
he's not like maybe if he starts to hit threes the way he like 2 of 3 yesterday and kind of attacked, like maybe he gets a little bit more minutes. And like obviously the big question is if I'm doing air quotes, if Chance practices in January and has a chance to come back, you have to still realize you still have to get him into the flow of playing real live basketball.
Yeah, we'll worry about that when that happens. I mean, that could who knows what that's going to do. But like, I mean, and again, like we said earlier, it's day to day with these guys. Like this team is just going to be a day to day team. You don't know what's going to happen until the game plays. And again,
I mean, we said when we did our podcast when Syracuse got back from Maui and they were going into the 6-game stretch to end non-conference play, we said 4-2, 4-2. I think was like our at best. Syracuse has a chance if they win Thursday to go 5-1.
Yeah,
and go into ACC play at 9-3, and you'll take that, right?
If I was aware of the Oregon injuries being so decimating, I would have said 5-1.
But either way, you're going to be 9-3. And we talked about it. Your biggest stretch of the ACC play is your first 6 games. After your first 6 games, it kind of levels off. Like you have chances to win, right? So
it ain't easy,
but it's not Duke, North Carolina, and Miami.
But it's all right. So you got those. All right, real quick, and we'll get out of here because I don't want to keep you guys. But like, so you got Pitt, Duke, BC, Carolina, Pitt, Miami. Then you got Florida State at home, NC State at home, at Boston, at Wake, Louisville at home, Clemson, and then Carolina at home, at Georgia Tech, at NC State, Notre Dame at home, Virginia Tech at home, at Louisville, at Clemson. So like you've got outside of so after that tough stretch, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 games in the ACC. And the only really ones that kind of scare me are the 2 Clemson ones and Carolina. Like all the other ones are games that Syracuse, I think, has a very good chance to potentially go 8-5, 9-4 if they're lucky in that stretch.
So last question before we sign off. We win Thursday night. We're 9-3. Okay. We just talked about their first 6 ACC games. You play Pitt twice. You play Miami, Duke, North Carolina, and you play Boston College in between there. If you go 3-3 and you're 12-6 heading into those last 13 games, are you happy with that?
I'm taking that 100 times. Like, obviously, I want to go 4-2 or 5-1 or whatever.
Yeah.
If you told me you're going 3-3, I think I am taking that because that means you beat Boston and you have 2 wins against Pitt, Carolina, Duke, or Miami, which are all going to be top 60, 50 Ken Pom wins. So like
I think the big one is their first game. It's December 30th. They're at home against Pitt. I think that's the big one, like the huge one.
Because you got Pitt twice in that 6 game span, and you got to go to Pitt, which is always tough. But you got Pitt at home. You cannot lose to Boston at home. You cannot.
And like right now, Miami would be the one of the 3 ranked teams that you're
That's a good one to steal. That's a good one to steal.
Yeah.
Because you got to go to Cameron and you got to go to the Dean Dome, which sucks. Like that sucks. Like that. There's no way around it. Like there's no way around it that the 3 places Syracuse had to go this year, like sucks. But they had to go to Charlottesville, they had to go to Carolina, and they have to go to Duke. Like that sucks. Like now those aren't going to be held against them too bad, but like that those are the 3 worst environments to play in.
Yeah.
Maybe Pitt's 4th. I mean, I think Florida State and Louisville, when they're good, they're probably up there as well. Although, I mean, and I got to go to Clemson.
The zoo is real. Like the zoo is real.
Little John's real. Like having to go to Clemson sucks too. Like, so, I mean, whatever. Like those are unavoidable. Those are 5 tough road games. UVA, Duke, Carolina, Clemson, and at least you don't go to Blacksburg, right? At least you don't have to go to Miami where we're cursed. You know, so like I mean, like we avoided a couple of tougher ones, but you're playing the top 4 or 5 teams on the road.
Yeah.
And like 3 of those are road only games.
Yeah.
Like Carolina's a home and home, Pitt's a home and home, but Duke is road only. And
Miami, I think, is road only. Or
Miami's
is that home?
Yeah, Miami's home only. Well, that's nice. But yeah, so yeah, it's just a tough slate. But Again, hopefully, in theory, that's why you go to Maui. That's why you play a random game in December in South Dakota to be ready to play. So we'll see what happens. All right. Anything else before we go, man? What you got? Anything else?
Good. I'm
All
good.
right. Well, thank you guys. Appreciate you. Like, subscribe, do all the good things. Help us out. We grow a little bit every podcast. Hopefully, you guys are, if nothing else, this is therapy for me and Nick. So you guys can kind of pop in and we appreciate you guys. So, so we will check back in with you guys for a preview pod of Niagara and the Fighting Greg Policis. And then we'll kind of talk about that ACC stretch and bring it Pitt before the new year as well. So on behalf of Nick Peckham, that's it from us. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks, guys.